Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Beacon, a home for those who have a passion for filmmaking and the unusual. The Haunted Hiddensdale House. Those who walk there do not walk alone. Paraware, apparel for the action-seeking paranormal investigator. Dragonfly art and soul for all of your magical, metaphysical, and spiritual needs. Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, the paranormal, and so much more. Paraniagara, one of the top rated destinations in Western New York. The Black Cat Lounge is part of the Paraflix Entertainment Network. There we go. We had our curtain was still drawn. Hey everybody, this is Tim Shaw. Welcome to the Black Cat Lounge. It's a Tuesday night. How cold is it by you? I know down in, I was chatting with Barry Kling down in Texas, and he was telling me that what happened? It was 49 degrees. So those poor Texans are almost frozen to death down there. We were down at, I think it was this morning when I woke up, it was 9 or 10 degrees here in Western New York. But it's supposed to be up in 39 tomorrow. So it'll be downright balmy. It'll be balmy. Hey, I've got a great show for you tonight. I am just so excited. The reason why I'm so excited is because we have a great friend on tonight. And we're going to talk about something that, I blame these guys. I blame this guy especially for how I am thinking now and how I am doing my investigations. But first, I want to thank DS Black, who invited me to be part of his book signing event this past Saturday night. And I loved it. I like to support authors who are out there working. And a lot of people are like, well, why would you bother? It's a pagan thing. You're a paranormal author and all that. Here's the thing, guys. Doesn't matter about whatever belief system people have. It doesn't matter at all, guys. It's the fact that this guy has gone out and done something. He's written a book. And it's about his beliefs, and I think it's really important. Because as I told him, I said, a lot of us are getting older. And we're waiting for the next generation to come in and learn from us and carry on what we do. It doesn't have to be paranormal. It doesn't have to be religious. It has to be something. So that they're out there doing what we need to be doing. We all need to be doing this. So let's continue it. Let's encourage people to go and write. Let's encourage people to go out and have podcasts and vodcasts. Let's encourage people to go and share their knowledge. And as a bald senior citizen, God damn it, I want everybody to go out there and be a part of it. Because why? Because it's important for the nenext generation. Don't think that it's not, and don't think. But anyway, let's get back to the show. I don't want to go and I don't want to get crazy. But anyway, me, I'm cheap. I never buy a book full price. So on thrift books, I saw this book, and I said, I'm going to buy it. I just on a whim, I'm going to buy it. I did the research on it, and it's a lot of scientific method and disproving and debunking things. But I'm going to tell you guys something. This book by, where's my fingers? Oh, there it is. Benjamin Radford. This book is actually a great book. Now, I'm not big into his, where he's talking about, well, we did this and we did that. I could care less about that. But what I found in this book, we're going to be talking about tonight, it explains a lot about scientific method. It talks a lot about the whys and hows and what we should be doing and how to conduct paranormal investigations that aren't a thrill ride. Because a lot of times right now, we find that these paranormal investigations that we're all part of are nothing more than thrill rides. They really are. I think, and the other thing that bothers me is there's a lot of paranormal investigators out there who are claiming that audio and video and photography doesn't lie and isn't false and can't be faked and doesn't produce, even when you're honest, doesn't produce false positives. So I started thinking about that. And I thought, you know what, guys, I have the perfect guest. And let me tell you about this guest. First of all, I met this guy at one of the Kling Brothers events a couple of years ago down in Virginia. We bonded. And the reason why we bonded is because we both have a heavy interest in the American Civil War. It is like just so ingrained in each one of us. And he lives. I mean, we're talking, this guy lives in the 1862 battle. He's in Richmond, Virginia. I mean, this guy is right there. He's in the center of the action. He is in that center. And they took a day out of his life to take me to the final places where my great-great-grandfather fought in 1862. And he went through the entire war. But I had never been there. And I thought it was a thing of pride that I needed to be on every one of the battlefields where he fought. And Brad took me there, and he was one of the best hosts I've ever met in my life when it came to American Civil War. So we bonded immediately. But more than that, I love being able to talk with him, and I like to bounce questions off of him. And I'm really interested in EVP. I've always been interested in it, but there's so many ifs and ways, and there's false positives, and is it distortion? Is it pareidolia? Is it, are we matrixing? Are we trying to, I don't know. So tonight we're going to talk about that. And I am so excited. So anyway, my guest, Robert Bradley, is a former industrial chemist and Six Sigma Green Belt with expertise in laboratory information technology. He is trained in audio, video, and distance learning technologies and holds a certified video conferencing engineering certificate. Since joining the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation, which is something that you guys should look up, and I'll flash the website on the screen for you guys. Take the time to check them out, because you know what? Here's the difference between them. We were brought up, guy like me was brought up, you had believers and you had debunkers. Nothing in the middle. But these guys aren't always, I love them because they don't see gray, or they see the gray, they don't see white and black. Could it be this? We're going to push it. We're going to try to explain it, but sometimes you got to say, I don't know. I love these people. I love them. I loved working with them. They were the greatest. They were absolutely the greatest. I'm sorry I'm waxing poetic, but I really am impressed by them. Anyway, back to my buddy Brad here. Yeah. The organization is a nonprofit academic research organization comprising current and former scientists, data analysts, medical specialists, law enforcement officers, engineers, and all sorts of other professionals, and an occasional broken down psychic like myself will wander through. Anyway, together the team conducts science-based investigations into phenomena commonly perceived, I'm having trouble with my voice today, perceived as paranormal by the general public. So everybody, let's welcome a good friend of the show, a guy that I personally, I really, just am honored that he takes the time out to come on the show. Mr. Brad Bradley. Come on, Brad. How you doing?
Hey, Tim.
See you.
Well, it's good to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man. I am just like, when you said, yeah, send me the link, I'll be on. I'll be there. I was like, I had happy feet. I went, I'm not going to lie. I went and I figured out a bunch of questions for you. I don't know how many times, Brad, I have asked, I've asked you, are you going to be home this week? Are you going to be home this week? I got to talk to you about EVP collection. and I never got a chance to it, especially it's the holidays and stuff. So I finally just said, do you want to be on the show? And you're like, yeah. I went, all right, we're perfect. This is great. This is copacetic. We're talking about all the stars perfectly aligning, Brad. That's the way it is. Believe it or not, I don't believe it, but they may have. I don't know. They could have done it. So, Brad, before we go into it, tell everybody a little bit about your organization.
Well, the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're devoted, just like you pretty much said it earlier, we're devoted to trying to determine what people think they see and hear, and really trying to figure things out. And we're the kind of person that collects a lot of data, and or kind of organization that collects a lot of data. We collect a lot of sensor data. We actually collect data that NASA has from satellites.
Amazing.
We have data from all over, and we just recently purchased some really cool thermal imaging gear that'll actually go. Well, hi, Bill. Will actually attach to like a DVR, and so we're going to be recording in real time the thermal imaging type stuff. So we do that kind of stuff, and then we try to correlate that with what people, what any kind of anomalous sounds we might pick up, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, or any kind of anomalous video that we might pick up, or anomalous experience. We try to correlate all that with all this data that we collected.
This is amazing. Now, you know what? I'm going to ask you really quickly. Listen, you're a science guy. You're a Civil War guy. What got you into this? Just as a little background, what got you in? Seriously, what got you into this? Because, with me, everybody knows I was kind of brought up into it, and it was like a natural thing that I just kind of stumbled into. But why are you doing this? What is the draw for you?
Well, first off, I was asked to, I was attending an event put on by Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson at the inn that they used to own up in New Hampshire. And my wife, I'd been watching the show because, I really liked the fact that I was a huge skeptic for a very long time. I should be part of the Center for Inquiry. But I went up there because I thought that the show actually, they didn't always find something.
Right.
They back then, this is like 2010 time frame and before, and it was like they didn't always find something. So I went up there.
It's called PC, pre-conjuring.
Yeah, there you go. I went up there and I saw some things that I could not explain. And I was like, wait a minute, I got to find out what that's all about. And then the guys got me involved with the founder of the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation. That's Bobby Atristain was our founder. And she interviewed me and such and had brought me on. And then over time, we started working out processes and procedures and stuff. This group's been around since 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Been around for 25 years.
Wow.
And they have some data for prior to me. And since I've got on board too, where we've been collecting all this data, we now have well over 3.5 terabytes of data online. And this is numerical data, and it's not audio, it's not video, it's not everything. It's just the numerical data. So we have a lot of data, and we're able to do these holistic data analyses over everything, finding trends over various sites, site types, weather, stuff like that. And believe it or not, you can use AI to do that, which is very nice. But we've also had, we had an analyst from NASA go through there and do that for us. Long story short, they got me involved in it. And now I want to find out what's going on. We've got, right now, we're very close to understanding the mechanism behind what people call residual. We don't call it that because that's kind of a misnomer. That implies that it's being imprinted on the environment, which we don't think is happening. But we've got the data, the weather data, and the environmental data surrounding all this, all that kind of the non-interactive type, activity, that right there just screams that there's something natural going on.
Right. I agree.
And so we're real close to finding that mechanism, real close, but now we're starting to look at interactive activity where that door opened right in front of me. How did that door open? How did that knob turn? We're trying to figure that out now too. So that's even more, that we're digging into. So, that's kind of how I got involved in it.
Now, Brad, let me ask you this. Tonight, I really want to talk a little bit about EVP, electronic voice phenomena. And I was brought up using a handheld mic with a cassette recorder. That's the way I started. And the big boom, of course, was digital, and all this came out. And we started getting all of this, all these little these voices or what we thought were voices or sounds or whatever on there. Let's just talk about what do you consider EVPs? What do you think they really are, in your opinion? Because in my opinion, I don't believe that they're exactly always spirit inclined, but people will argue with me all day long.
This is going to be a bit controversial.
That's all right. But that's fine.
Right now, what the theory is that, there's some kind of manipulation of the device which produces the recording itself.
Mm-hmm.
And however, the audio data that we've collected, like since I've been there for 15 years, all that audio data does not indicate the presence of something like that, because it turns out that most of this stuff has there are many different things that can happen. Audio that that a lot of the audio that people might think might be EVP because we didn't hear it with our own ears. Well, actually we could have, but we were busy thinking about something else or moving or what have you, and we didn't hear it. And we actually have another 2 recorders that picked it up. Now that would indicate that it was audible. So at that point, 2 or 3 recorders picked it up. So at that point, you're saying, oh well, this had to have been audible. I was just being a loud idiot and just didn't hear it. But that's kind of a lot of it, and there's a lot of other things that can go into this too. Believe it or not, really strong radio transmissions can do this, and it'll come across. And the reason we can identify those is we've been picking up things that are these like loud pops right before we might get a recording. And that loud pop happens, and then the recording sounds like it's missing certain frequencies in it in the audio spectrum. It sounds tinny. Well, it almost sounds like it's coming across the radio.
Right. Well, exactly.
One thing that we found, there's a couple of things that might be going on there, because we have a whole other line of experiments which identified electromagnetic pulses on occasion that come across that should not be there, and they can cause those loud pops. And that audio could be coming from something, whatever generated that. But a lot of times, though, you're picking up radio transmission, which we've been able to identify, and you can tell in that radio frequency. I mean, in the vocal spectrum, you can tell in the audio spectrum when those frequencies are missing. That's the spitting image of something that comes from radio transmission. We had something really powerful happen to us once, and we're still trying to figure this out, but we got one of those really loud pops. And then once that happened across the recorder, it was almost like an electronic spike. Mm-hmm. And once that happened, we started picking up a radio station coming across our microphones out in our HQ, which was 100 yards away from the house. And we're like, whoa, what are we hearing? And we're hearing a radio station. So we muted that. We went ahead and recorded it, but we muted it out there so we didn't worry about it, so we could hear other things. Well, once we went back and we looked at this audio, one thing that we did hear, it was a radio station from Colorado,
Really?
and yeah, and it was coming across shortwave skip. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is,
Oh
but
yeah.
basically, it's the HF goes up, bounces off the atmosphere, and comes back
Right.
down again.
Right. Right.
Well, that's what was going on, and it would fade and then get louder,
Amazing.
then fade and get louder, and it was coming across the recorder, and we had generated because we used an extra long mic cable with that recorder. It kind of it created an antenna, is what it did,
Almost,
and
almost like an accidental antenna.
that's right. And
Yeah.
if you've ever played, like I played in a rock band for 20 years, and when you're on a big stage and sometimes your cables create an antenna and you're hearing AM radio coming
Right.
across your guitar amp, that's kind of what happened. And, but having said that, that transmission was from a show that radio station did 2 months before. Now, what was crazy about that is we contacted them because they gave their call sign and everything. So we contacted them and they said that they were not running a recorded show. They were running a live show and it had nothing to do with what they were talking about. And so at that point, now we're trying to figure out what happened. And that put us on a whole other line of experimentation where we're looking at time displacement and things like that at particular locations. So, or, I keep talking about the Einstein-Rosenbridge thing. A lot of this stuff could be due to that. So,
right.
You don't know until you start running the experiments, which is why we bought this whole bunch of thermal imaging gear from donations that we got from various entities. And we're going to try to identify the sources for some of this audio that I just described.
That's amazing to me, because I've often wondered, because we always talk about radio waves and TV signals and all these frequencies that are going out into space. And if there is life someplace, intelligent life, I'm sure they're scratching their heads, seeing their rendition or our rendition of the Three Stooges and I Love Lucy, and not understanding what the hell this is.
If they could even modulate it.
Exactly.
Or demodulate it.
Exactly. But now think about it. It makes sense. But I would love to, again, people don't realize that there are so many influences that can happen, that can go and really, I don't want to use the word taint, but taint your recordings. Again, people aren't getting the reason why we have to be far more careful with what we're doing and far more scientific, because let's face it, Brad, as well as I do, group of people go out, rent a place, rent a haunted location out.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. A couple, they got a couple K2s and they got some recorders. Oh my God, listen to this. And you'll either hear a garble that sounds like something, and of course our brains are wired to try to make sense out of chaos, or they're getting something that has nothing to do with the question of what we're talking about. And that to me always screamed of radio, shortwave, something else, and that's it's the same thing when we start talking about discarnate voices in locations. When you start getting discarnate voices, you have to think to yourself, what is around me? And people don't do that. Most mediums will go and say, okay, this happened. Spirit came in, used the ectoplasmic voice box that came out of nowhere.
Oh my God.
And created a voice. And what it is it's nothing more than an accidental antenna, and you're getting shortwave or cell phone, signals or something that's creating that sound. And that's where you have to be so careful. And I learned that a couple of years ago about how cell towers skip.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And up at the Hinsdale house, there was 10 of us, and all of a sudden there's no power, nothing. And all of a sudden all our K2s go off. 10 K2s go off.
Well, there's a whole series of papers about electromagnetic transmissions
Hmm.
coming from not only earthbound type stuff, but now that we have Starlink,
Right,
and
right.
also soon to be Amazon's version of that too. And because of that, you're getting electromagnetic transmissions from there,
Hmm.
and it actually, hi Pam, but it actually, they found out that you could be 100 miles out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and have all the power off on your boat, the whole bit, and you will pick up electromagnetic transmissions of some kind.
Exactly.
And you can look at what's happening at Skinwalker Ranch. They're kind of proving it on that
Yes,
TV show.
yes.
And so the fact that there are papers about it, and these aren't necessarily paranormal papers either. There's one that is. Dave Schumacher wrote a really good one about it, but in relation to paranormal experiences. But there are other papers out there that talking about the effects of satellite transmissions on earthbound receivers and things like that too. So all that's there.
See, a lot of people don't. Again, I think what happens is the moniker skeptic has such a negative connotation. And I met the late Joe Nichols. And Joe Nichols, you know what? I was afraid to meet him, Brad, and I'm going to tell you why. Because of the fact that everybody that I had out at Lilydale, when he'd show up at Lilydale, it was like DEFCON 5 went off. Everybody's running in different directions. They're closing their windows and everything. He was probably the nicest gentleman I had ever met in my life. And he said something to me that stuck with me all these years. And I was working a camera. Somebody else was doing an interview with him. And he said, I'm a magician. I'm also a scientist. If you can go and you can show me something that I can't prove through science or through magic, but yet it happens, I'm going to say it's a mystery. Will I believe it? I'll wait till I find out and I experience it. And I thought to myself, this gentleman is truly, truly a world-class person because he's not throwing everything. He's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. He's willing to have an open mind, even though I've read, I don't know, probably 6 of his books, where he's debunking this or debunking that. But skeptics are getting such a bad rap because, well, some of them, I'm not going to lie. I was never a fan of the Amazing Randy because he was just so abrasive and everything. But I mean, he did have a point. But there's so many skeptics out there that aren't just doing it to be debunkers. And there's a lot and the one thing, Brad, that I found out, there's a lot of skeptics out there that were kind of religious and they were looking for the truth. And I thought, my God, what higher calling is that? Is to use science to find the truth rather than getting out there and just accepting whatever somebody said that that kind of made sense at the time, but that was
Yeah.
100 years. No, Brad, we got Brad Bradley on today from CPRI, and I don't want to pontificate because I got too many questions for you, Brad. Too many questions. Okay, first off, let's talk about equipment. Big controversy over old school, new gear, old gear. A lot of people say reel to reel tapes were the bomb. I started off with cassette. I've got, and I understand where some of these things came from. Some of the recordings that I got came from by using cassette. You got the digital age now, old digital, like the DR60. Oh my God, I'm so tired of people going. The reason why they stopped, Brad, they stopped making these things was because spirit was starting to go into it and the people were hearing voices and all this other stuff, right? And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. And you start looking at it, it's like the reason why they stopped is because they developed something better. And these things were chewing up battery time and they were just garbled. They were just garbled. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the the DR60, but I'm not a big fan of a lot of them. So let me ask you, my friend, when it comes to recording devices, 20-year-old recording devices that may have a problem with shielding, may have a problem with a few things with them, or just any kind of recording device that you might want to work with?
Well, you mentioned something about shielding, and I got to say that most, I would say the vast majority of any recording devices, they might say they're shielded,
They're
but
not.
because they've got microphones, they are not shielded.
Yep.
Because anything can affect that microphone coil. And the other thing too, yeah, somebody just says they're not buying a DR60 now. But we actually, for the most part, we try to standardize our recorders so that we have the same sampling rate. If we're using a digital recorder, we have the same sampling rate, the same frequency response on the microphones, and that we standardize on them. And we tend to use something that's relatively inexpensive, but has that really good frequency response on the microphones. And that's something that I'd used in the past, being a musician. And it's called a DR05, a Tascam DR05. And I've dropped one of those 3 stories down a stairwell, and it bounced, and it still worked. I still use it today.
Wow.
And yeah, it still works just fine. But that's on the digital side. I've seen there's a comment where somebody mentions a magnetic tape. I think it's Kenneth mentions magnetic tape.
There we
go. Magnetic tape is fine. You're still got that microphone that's doing the same thing that the microphones do on the digital ones. It's just transferring it to magnetic tape. And I don't think, I tell you, I've only had experience with magnetic tape, like reel to reel or cassette or what have you, in a couple of different research projects we did. And I'm here to tell you that one of the best audio anomalies that we've picked up was a woman crying in the attic of a restaurant that we were asked to come in and look at in Midlothian, Virginia. And it was originally a stagecoach tavern built in 1735. And now it's a restaurant. So we went up in the attic. We left the recorder in the attic and stuff. And when we got the recorder back, the fellow that put it up there played it back for us, and it was a woman crying out loud, like moaning, like, oh my God. And we were outside. We did not hear any of this outside, so it didn't come from outside. And so but that was almost assuredly had come through the microphone based on the frequency response of the recording. So we didn't come electronically. There was no interference, no radio transmission or anything, because it had the frequencies it needed to have coming through that microphone based on the frequency response of the microphone. So we kind of had to do that analysis on there. So that was really good. However, there are several other, we have reams, like thousands of feet of magnetic tape that have, butkus on it. So that right there, we've gotten the one really cool thing. So I think that it's, if you want to use magnetic tape, I think, what we're determining is it all tends to be dependent on the microphone.
Right.
And so if you want to use magnetic tape, use magnetic tape. Just know the frequency response of your microphone that you're using, and understand that if you use a really long cord, you could create an antenna, out there. Just understand the nuances of the equipment you're using. That's the biggest deal.
I made that fatal mistake at the Hinsdale house where I wired it, and I was using 3 dynamic mics piped in to a mixer going into one of my laptops. The problem came in is, like, all of a sudden I'm hearing like voices. I thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread, Brad, because it was like, this was great, right? I got something, right? This is something. And that's when I first realized that I was picking up a radio transmission, and the
Yeah.
mic and the cables were acting like an antenna. And that's where I realized it. I said, okay, now we have to start looking a little bit more seriously. Now, let me ask you this. We start talking about frequency. Do you think it's possible that something can imprint on a recording, or do you think that it all has to be picked up by a mic, or what happened here? Let me even make it even. Let me up the ante on you, Brad. What happens if we totally took out the coil for the microphone and just let the recorder run in that capacity? Do you think that there's a possibility of a frequency imprinting on that, minus having the microphone?
It all depends. The strength of the radio transmission, if it's pretty strong, like
Mm-hmm.
a police car nearby or something like that, it's liable to affect that magnetic tape if you use magnetic tape.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it could. I mean, I did a lot of in my previous job, I did a lot of radio communication stuff, so I'm very familiar with how that stuff works. And if it's nearby, it could do that. Now, that'd be a neat experiment to do. We have yet to do that because the audio data we're collecting, we're not experimenting just to prove or disprove EVP. We're using the audio to collect anomalies to compare with other data, and that'd be an interesting experiment to do, especially with a magnetic tape. Now, with a digital recorder, that might be tricky because disconnecting that microphone pretty much could destroy the circuitry of the recorder. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
But I would be something that I would like to see done with a magnetic tape. Just a line of experimentation around that. Collect enough data so that you get statistical significance, and and just to see what it is. Like I said, the audio data that we have does not indicate that a lot that there's a lot of EVP stuff that happens. Sorry, I just saw Deborah's thing pop up there. I'm getting distracted here.
Hey, listen, skunk. Don't worry about it. We're both like squirrels.
Squirrel.
Like a walkie-talkie interfering on the same frequency.
It can, and I've actually seen that happen. I'm gonna use a term that I usually makes me ill to say, but I was around a ghost box. Sorry, got sick for a second. But in doing that, we keyed a walkie-talkie, and that walkie-talkie wasn't even in the same frequency spread that was being scanned by that ghost box. However, if you're familiar with how radios work, if the transmission's powerful enough, it's going to bleed over into multiple bands. And when it does, it's going to show up. And that's what happened. I said my name, and the person that had the ghost box said, "Oh, look, it said Brad. Is there a Brad in the room?" And I had the walkie-talkie. And I was close enough for that to happen.
Right.
So it's entirely possible for that to happen. I mean, just about any radio transmission can do that to you if you're not careful. The one thing to do that most people don't think to do is to have multiple recorders running at the same time in the same location.
Yeah, you taught me that. That I thought, and the one thing that I took away from our talk with that one was the fact that I bought similar recorders, and I placed one in a Faraday pouch, which unfortunately sometimes might not be as good as what they're saying, and one outside, and conducted that type of experiment. Now, the recorder outside, I got a couple EVPs, but the recorder inside the Faraday pouch got nothing.
Yep. And now you might think, well, that just means that it's coming across radio frequency. Maybe not. The data that we're collecting right now, where we're seeing that the different types of it's around Einsteinian physics. You got to think he predicts something like an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and so we're seeing these electromagnetic pulses that are happening at the same time. We're seeing spikes in radiation and fluctuations in the geomagnetic field, the Earth's magnetic field, and we're seeing all this happening. We see it like we haven't seen it enough for it to be statistically significant, but we have seen it enough that it's definitely an anomaly that we're looking at.
Right
now. If something like that happens, you might get something on your recorder because of that effect. Now, if you're going to be looking for that kind of thing, you got to be careful with your experiment. You got to design your experiment so that you're looking for what you need to look for.
Exactly.
If you're looking for a difference between a recorder in the pouch versus a recorder outside the pouch, that's great. And then you just determine that there is definitely a difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now you just got to figure out what that difference is. See, and that's the problem. That's cool. Science wise, that's cool. But it's also a pain.
Oh no, I agree, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. It is,
but you're never going to get there unless you follow the breadcrumbs.
Right.
And what we do is, we follow the data regardless where it takes us. If the data never lies, it's just data. And if the data takes us down a quantum physics path, we'll go that direction. If the data takes us down a spiritual path, we'll go that direction. Right now the data is pushing us towards Einsteinian physics, so we're going that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Just excuse me just a second. I'm still recovering from that bout of flu that we had. But
I know the feeling, because just before we went on the air, my voice went.
But anyway, that's you got to be careful how you design that experiment. And what you did, if you could do that multiple times, and usually 13 is a good number, an odd number like that, but above 10. But usually around 13 is a good number. And then you've got some things you might consider statistically significant. And then you could actually, you could actually present on just that. You'd be surprised. The physicists out there are always looking at stuff like that. And it may not have anything to do with paranormal stuff at all. And you can still present on that. But that type of experiment that you just ran should be run multiple times, and that way you could get some statistically significant data.
That's exactly it. And you know what? That the problem is that most investigators are only at a location for a finite amount of time. So it's awful. Right. It's hard for them to do that. I'm lucky because I have the Western Block up here. My friend Heather owns it. So I'm able to go up there, and whenever I want to, I can have some kind of repeatability. We start talking about scientific method. We need repeatability. We need to be able to have some kind of control system. And like you said, we have to be able to go and design it so that our methodology is exactly the same. And that just takes a lot of organization. And a lot of people don't want that, because you know why? They want that thrill factor. Let me ask you this one, Brad.
I'm worried now.
No. There's nothing that you can't answer. Believe me.
Okay.
Because this is going to fall in the realm of opinion. Now, several times I've been at different locations, and we've tried different experiments with just, handhelds and, or whatever. And sometimes we do the counting game where everybody counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then within 30 to 40 seconds, you get the whisper 7. Now, we're not talking about, where we think it's a 7. It's where we replay it and everybody says the same thing. It sounds like 7. Now, is that our brain trying to make sense of it? because we counted to 6?
It's entirely possible it is. And
Yeah.
also, you can have 25 people in a room hear that. And there have been psychological studies about this very thing. And you can have like 25 people in the room hear what you just said. And when they, as they hear it, each one, if you don't let them comment on what they think it says. Take each one of them out separately, out in separate 25 different rooms, and isolate them and ask them. Every one of them is going to say it's something different. And because it is, unless you have a linguist in there listening to that, then you can't really trust what your brain's trying to tell you.
I agree. I agree 100%, because what happens is that you'll go and TV people have been doing this for 100 years. You know as well as I do.
Yeah.
Brad, what did it sound like? And then you'll see underneath, you'll see the word spelled out. Your eyes see it, your brain imprints it, and now you're hearing it. And every time you hear that same recording, you hear the exact same thing.
And there's a known experiment out there too that somebody did. They have a recording of something, and you can have it play back to you. And depending on when you listen to it, they'll tell you at the beginning, it says this. Well, you listen to it, it's like, yeah, sure, it says that. But then in the middle, it'll say, well, it says this. And then you listen to it again, and it's like, well, no, it says this. So it's like it's like I don't know, a power of suggestion, I guess. And it's a combination of pareidolia and a power of suggestion, so to speak, because your brain's trying to make sense of it. And you were talking about the little grumbling type stuff that happens, or the mumble stuff that happens on recordings.
Yes.
One of the things that we do, we just classify sounds that are anomalous as anomalous sounds,
right?
Until we figure out what they are. We don't try to say their voices or what have you. Most of the time, we have on occasion had access to someone who was a linguist who actually had told us that something that was being said at a particular location was in French, and we didn't know that. I just heard gobbledygook, and but this person listened to it and said, no, it sounds like somebody's speaking French. And it just happened to be, what's really cool about things like this is you collect this data, and we're not really looking at the history of the house.
Right.
All right. When we collect this data, that's not what we're there for. We're there to collect data because we're designed a specific experiment around that. And somebody just asked, Pam asked if we saw our previous comment about I don't know which one Pam's talking about.
There we go. Got it right there.
Oh, that one. Okay. But, if excuse me, if you end up, I kind of lost train of thought because I was looking at Pam's thing.
No, but, I mean, when we start talking about something that we didn't know, let's say you were talking about.
The history of the house. It turns out that location was built by French Huguenots. So, in the 1760s. So we were like, oh, well, that's interesting. So now we're starting to make those correlations back. We don't do that ahead of time, because you can really get a lot of confirmation bias in your experiment by going and researching the history ahead of time before you get to the site.
Exactly.
And but sometimes you need to, because you need to know where you're going to go. So it's like a darned if you do and darned if you don't.
It's a catch-22, no matter what you do with it. And I think working with historic locations like you have and I have, if you go in there cold, well, then you only got one night to work there. You may not be asking the right questions.
That's right.
And that's what sucks. So to me, it makes more sense to have one person that actually knows the history of the place to design the questions that are going to be asked, or to add into it a little bit. Because otherwise, because let's face it, as well as I do, you and I go to Gettysburg. We know every house. We know what happened everywhere. So it wouldn't be advantageous for us to go and design these questions for a for an experiment we were doing. But if somebody else was doing an experiment, we would be the right people to go and design the questions or whatever situations that they wanted. That's a big thing. Now, what Pam is creates
before we get on Pam's thing, I wanted to tell you that we don't ask questions. We don't try to interact with anything.
Oh,
we're
really?
very passive. Yeah, we're very passive.
That's interesting.
And if we do talk, it's to ourselves. I mean, we're talking among ourselves. And what we found out is that as we talk among ourselves, we get a lot of anomalous sounds that come around us that aren't us. So,
really?
Yeah. So that's real interesting if we happen to be in a location.
So
sometimes that doesn't happen, but it happens more often than not.
So in other words, you're not getting answers to your questions, but you're still getting interaction by interacting with each other.
Yeah, we're just talking to each other, and it's almost like we've stepped in and changed the environment enough to allow something to happen.
That's neat.
And so that's what it feels like.
That's neat.
And we haven't started conducting experiments around, how we're changing the environment like that yet. But we do know that when we go into a location, like we walk into a room, if we've left a microphone in that house for 8 hours and we got nothing coming across that microphone, that recorder, then we walk into the house and we're talking among ourselves, and all of a sudden we hear a woman's voice in the background when we don't have any females in the group at all. Or we might hear what sounds like a cat, or something like that.
Neat.
We hear weirdness like that. And I think it's almost as if that we've gone in and upset the environment enough to where it's changed and allowed whatever mechanism to cause that stuff to play back. And, that's kind of misnomer too, but allow those sounds to be played.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Pam here, the whole deal about having 3 or 4 different devices setting out within 12 inches of each other. I think that's a problem, because a lot of times those devices interfere with each other, and you got to be very careful with that. My biggest pet peeve is people carrying, I don't know if you're familiar with what an EDI plus is. And
I just bought the Kling Brothers.
Yeah. And
with
the EDI plus, people carry it around like this.
Yeah, you can't. It's not built
for that. Well, no, you can't do that, because just the static electricity that builds up from you moving that plastic device around is enough to set off the EMF. Mm-hmm. And also you got a vibration sensor on the thing, which is going to go nuts, which causes that amber light to go crazy.
Yep.
So, and also you got temperature changes from moving it around like that. So you can't move it around. That's a static device. That device is designed to be static. Just about all of our sensors are like that.
Yeah.
But also what we found out too is that those Geiger counters that we use, the GQ, I guess it's can't remember what it's called. Yeah, it's the 300 series Geiger counters. Those things will interfere with a magnetometer, like the ones that's in the EDI.
Really? I didn't know that, because
if you have it within 1.5 feet to 2 feet inside that radius around that magnetometer, it will interfere with the magnetometer, because the processor in the device is giving off a bunch of RF. So we did figure that. We did find that out early on, and so we keep that away. We keep those about 3 or 4 feet apart. The other thing that one of my pet peeves is the people holding a device in their hand, saying that their device is showing that there's electromagnetic field fluctuations, and they've got a cell phone right next to it. And even if the cell phone's in airplane mode, it's still giving off RF, because the processor does, and it's not shielded. So that really drives me crazy too. And I see that a lot on some of these public investigations that sometimes we get asked to help out with, and it's like I try not to be mean.
Well, I mean, let's face it, Brad. We're not there to be mean.
No.
And when it comes to public events, a public event is pay your ticket price, and you want to be entertained, because 99% of the people coming in do not have any gear. They don't have any experience. They just want to go in there and have something happen, or it's in a non-touchy-feely haunted house, basically, is what the way I think of it.
It's in the
But
paratourism realm.
exactly.
Yeah.
But if you want to go and you're starting to get into something that you want to push the boundaries a little bit more than just standing there with your recorder in your hand and trying to get something, well, then now you have to go and you have to really sit down, be organized, design something, get your methodology down, don't be afraid to do it and to work with it. And I think that's what's so important. Now,
Oh yeah.
let me ask you this. Now. Last question of the night, because the night already went pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
Brad, you went ick with the ITC, the ITC technology. I have only once ever had something happen to me where I have to say I can't prove it, but it fit my narrative. So here's my thing. To me, that is not in the realm of provable science. We can't prove that. I will go out there and I will admit and say right to my dying day that I can't prove it. It wasn't whoever it was, whatever. But in the realm of belief, that's got to be one hell of a coincidence. How much do you feel that coincidence plays in the collection of EVP?
Well, there's two schools of thought there. But I mean, for me, I can't really trust the device.
Right.
And no problem, Pam. But I can't trust the device because there are too many variables that cannot be controlled with ITC.
I agree. Yes.
There are, and so you can't really trust it. So how do you know? Because you can't prove it one way or another if it's an anomaly, an anomalous transmission that's not from a radio frequency transmission or what have you. It's like you can't really prove it. But at the same time, people will say, well, if you can't prove it, you can't disprove it either. So that makes it fact. It's like, no, that's not the way that works.
No, that doesn't work like that. It doesn't
that's
work.
That's not the way that works.
Listen, that's 1970s paranormal arguments right there.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
Now, going back to the time when the radio fuzz and people would listen for voices in a radio fuzz and try to pull those things out. That was a whole line of experiments that people did. And some of that they found out was essentially pareidolia and matrixing.
Yes. Yeah.
But, there were times when they found something they couldn't explain, but that was before they understood a lot about radio transmissions coming from space, stuff like that. But if you do use something like an ITC, it would have to totally eliminate all those variables, would eliminate its ability to do anything. And that's the problem with the device.
Right.
And that's why I'm not a big fan of it. A lot of us are. We put those up along the lines of cat balls and K2 meters. I mean, that's because you can't use them for any legitimate science. You can't.
I agree.
And even if you run experiments on them, using those as part of your experiment, there are so many variables, you're going to have to really, really spend some time and figure out that experimental design.
Exactly. And again, what happens there is it leaves the area of science and goes into the realm of pseudoscience or belief. And that's something that people are not willing to go and admit to. As a medium, I have no idea the process. I have no idea what goes on, but I admit to it. And I also admit to not knowing why something happens or whatever. And people need to do that. People need to go and be honest and just say, I don't know why. I don't know why this thing said Wilhelm or garbled or whatever. You know, you got to be able to, you got to be honest and say, I don't know why. Did it say it? I don't know. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Now, one last question for my friend Johnny here. Should we mount recorders on tripods? I remember a day when we used to do that. We used to always put all of our stuff on tripods.
We haven't really seen a difference because we have some that are mounted on tripods and some that aren't. And like the DRO5 is tailor made to attach to a tripod.
Right.
But still, you know, we haven't really noticed a difference. Now, if you want, as part of your experimental design, you don't want interference from, say, a metal tabletop,
right,
or something like that, then a tripod would be appropriate. You just got to design your experiment appropriately for the equipment that you're going to have, or actually bring the equipment for the experiment. You know, just the equipment for the experiment. Don't bring a whole bunch of other stuff, because if you do, then you're gonna bias a lot of different parts of your experiment you're trying to run.
So you're telling me to leave the cat balls at home?
Yeah, leave the cat balls at home.
I got a box of them. What am I going to do with them now, Brad? I got a box full.
I know. I knew you bought a crate on eBay. I saw.
Listen, tell everybody about. You got me laughing now. Tell everybody about CPRI and how, you know, what you guys are doing and how to get a hold of you guys if you want to learn more about it.
Well, we also have a Facebook page. You can look up CPRI, the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation, on Facebook, and you can reach us through Facebook. You can also email me at science@centerpri.org, and I won't ignore your email like I do Tim's, but well,
you've never ignored any of my
stuff. I never
have.
But no, seriously, if they want to do that, they can contact us that way. We also have an office phone number, but that pretty much is recorded. So basically, when they call in, they'll leave a voicemail, and then we'll call them back. And all that stuff is on our Facebook page and also on our website.
Super, Brad. Thank you for being here. Stay on the line so I can thank you properly off the air. And you know what? You answered half of my questions. So I hope that you don't have to work tomorrow, because we'll be up to about 2 or 3 o'clock going through the rest of my questions that I have here. No. Stay on the line, buddy. Thank you so much. Thank you. You humbled me by coming on and really, really opening everybody's eyes and my eyes to something that, you know, we've got to be able to go and just kind of I guess, admit that sometimes belief can't cover it all.
And I want to say one thing about belief real quick before we go.
Sure.
Believe it or not, science and belief don't have to go separate ways.
Exactly.
I have a belief structure, and all the people in our organization have various belief structures, but you can't let that interfere with the science that you're trying to conduct. So at that point, you know, you hope certain things happen, but you can't let that bias what you're doing.
I love
it. So it's not, they're not exclusive.
This is what I love. This is what I love about you, Brad, because of the fact that you are a true experiencer. That means that you'll go and be open to what happens, and let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes. And I think that's great. That's an adventurer. Stay on the line, my friend. Stay on the line. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I love you, kid. You're the best. You're the best. This was a fantastic show. I have to tell everybody that I was just so thrilled when he wanted to come on and to talk about this, because of the fact this is something on paranormal shows that people don't ever talk about. So many people just go and they say, oh, well, you know, I got this, I captured this, but why? The problem that we do have with paranormal investigators is the vast, I don't know, so many of us don't understand the science. They don't understand the equipment that we're using, why or how, what's going on, what could affect it. What do we have to watch out for? That's what tonight was so important about. So guys, we're going to go, and after the holidays, we're giving Brad a couple weeks off. And after the holidays, we're going to have him back on, because this is a topic that we really do need to share, and learn from. So, guys, thanks for spending your frozen Tuesday night here at the Black Cat Lounge, where the elite meet. Where else? Next to the dumpster transfer station. And I have new T-shirts. Thank you, DJ Buttons. And you'll see the new design coming up pretty soon. Ciao, babies. Take care. Stay warm. Be kind.